I'll start off. It looks like we're going to be in the mechanism. So, any idea of the functioning of the mechanism, how it's going to work? So, what are the trigger mechanisms that we're beholden to? Can you give us some insight into that?
Well, our understanding as to how the mechanism will operate is obviously evolving in the sense that this is still early days with respect to its operation, but this is one of the reasons why we are as engaged as we are across the network. But our understanding is that the process will have two stages to it in the sense that there will be a member state level analysis that is done based on information that they will receive from exporters, and there will be an analysis that is done at the commission level. Those are to happen according to the regulation that's been promulgated within 48 hours, with the possibility of an extension in extraordinary circumstances, or in unusual circumstances, I should say. But that is the process that's set out in the rule that has been developed.
Okay, and then as far as the time frame for this mechanism to be in place, is there an end date in place? Is this just a short-term mechanism, or is this actually going to be something that could be extended out into a longer period of time, right throughout the vaccination period?
Under the trade rules, as Steve was setting out earlier, it is required that these be temporary measures. The rule, as it's drafted, is basically in force until the end of March. But that wouldn't necessarily foreclose the possibility of a replacement rule being put in place. But as it's drafted right now, it's the end of March.
And then under this mechanism, again, we're in a scenario now where we haven't had vaccinations for a couple of weeks. There's talk about we're going to get them back. We're going to get it, backloaded. But can you do that in this mechanism? Can the company actually contribute and do that and say, hey, we missed this shipment this week, so we're going to make it up and ship 2 shipments to make it up? Like, how's that measurement going on?
Well, our objective is to make sure that there's no disruption. That's been our objective throughout the conversation since this has begun, and that continues to be where we're focusing, and those are the assurances that we've received. So our focus throughout the conversations that we're having at all levels are with a view to avoiding disruption.
So then, again, I'm trying to get through it from a layman's perspective. So I'm sitting here, okay, EU's short X million, let's say 3 million doses this week. So, okay, now these companies have to make up that 3 million doses before they can actually export to another country?
Well, what we have been told is, and the assurances we have received, is there will be no disruption to the exports that we are expecting, and so that continues to be the undertaking that we've been given.
And that's where I have a problem. You have diplomats or you have politicians talking to politicians, but this is a regulation. This is actually embedded in law. So if you see a scenario where the numbers don't lie, this is where we're at in the EU, and then the mechanism kicks in and it's going to have to impact us. Now, if it impacts us this week, does it also impact us next week when the numbers in the EU get back to normal? How does that function and the timeframes around that?
I would just go back, Madam Chair, to the basic point. The undertakings we've been given suggest there will not be disruption, and that is the objective of all of our conversations. So,
yeah, see, I have a hard time with that because they're running at 100% capacity as it is. How do they squeeze out some more next week to make up for the EU shortfall? If they could, they would have already. Are they going to pull from other capacity, somewhere else in the world, and does that put it in a better shape? And then the question of transshipment, shipments that come through the EU on their way to Canada, do they get seized, or how do they function and operate?
Madam Chair, I as I say, our objective here has been absolutely consistent, and the assurance we've been given do suggest that there will be no disruption. So that is precisely what we are objecting, or that is our objective, and that's our expectation.
No, fair enough. I get that, but it's put in place to protect the EU, to make sure that they've got enough vaccinations, and to say we won't be disrupted means we're giving preferable treatment versus other countries. You can't do that in a regulation. That's why you have rules in place. And if they do that, then I'm sure Mr. Verhul is going to actually be very excited to take them to WTO or whatever appropriate means to make sure they don't do it again. So I think all we got is insurances that we're going to go through the mechanism and it'll be fair. That's it. And we really won't know that until we're through it.
Thank you very much, Mr.